And what's going on? I'm Brother Zay. I'm here with the Loading Up podcast for my very first quick save. And as you can see from the title, we're gonna get into it. That's right, PlayStation is in shambles. And I know they say this news is old, they say it happened already, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody talked about how 900 people lost their jobs, how whole studios in the UK just completely closed. This has affected studios like Fire Sprite, Insomniac. It affected Naughty Dog. We're talking about seasoned developers for these companies who've been with these companies for 18 years, who created these games that we know and love, who are just now without of a job. And I think that's because of Jim Ryan's push for live service, getting rid of the old model, going to live service, and just pushing this way forward. We can see how we have absolutely no games coming from all these studios until at least 2025, but yet they're still pushing forward with this rumored PlayStation 5 Pro. Everybody's talking about the potential specs for this PlayStation 5 Pro, and it's just getting a bit ridiculous. I don't understand how people can justify buying a console that has no games on it, or doesn't have a games coming out until who knows when. Because we've seen games like Foam Stars come out and just completely die off. Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Rebirth, the sales dropped off 90% in Japan from the sequel to the next. It really is in bad shape. And if I felt like we saw like one article from like Polygon or even Windows Central, and it was just that was it. Nobody's talking about it. And it's a shame. It really is a shame. They have so many talented studios, so many talented people working in Sony, and I feel like because of Jim Ryan and all the pushes that he's been doing for live service, they're just not making enough money, and that's evident. People aren't buying the PlayStation to play those big AAA exclusive games anymore. They're playing Fortnite, they're playing Call of Duty, they're playing Maddens and MLB The Show, but they're not playing every single game that they're out there making, and they're suffering for that. A big part of that, I believe, has to come from the PC market. We see the focus going to be in the future going to PC sooner, as we saw with Helldivers 2, which was a massive success. As you know, we've played Helldivers 2 a bunch on stream here at Loading Up. It's a really fun game, but it really shined because of the day one release on PC. I think that sort of like really cemented its success. And I think Sony needs to stop what they're doing, take a look at what they did with Helldivers, and see we could make a ton more money if we just release all these games right on PC and PlayStation. I don't think the sales will be hurt for the console. I mean, if they were going to be hurt by the console, they wouldn't make a pro console, or even the next console. They would just release day and date on whatever is there. I think the best way forward is to release on PC, release on PlayStation. They could make the money and stop firing these people who created all these games, who are now without a job, who are now suffering because of the mismanagement that has been Sony for the last few years under Jim Ryan. I really hope going forward they can push past this whole live service just junk and get down to making money so that way they can produce those big AAA games. I think what needs to happen is they need to focus on shipping their games to other platforms, PC, PlayStation, and worry about cultivating a culture that will thrive in this world, in this economy where we're seeing the price of developing games skyrocket. We need to focus solely on like smaller games, smaller companies who are doing big things, just like Helldivers is doing. And we need to really protect these developers. Uh, a lot of developers now are trying to form unions, which is amazing. You know, that's a great way to try and um, cement yourself in your future, so that way you don't have to. It's like these 900 people who lost their job go home to their families not knowing where they're gonna land next. You know, that's the real crime here. But I think we need to talk about how these companies are doing wrong by these developers, and it's it just hasn't been talked about much. We see uh, Microsoft fired 1,900 people. Most of that was like redundancies and from the merger for ABK, but still a lot of people lost their jobs, and we need to have sort of a safety net for these developers going forward. Uh, we need to really put pressure, um, especially the louder minority on like social media, like Twitter, where you see these fanboys clashing back and forth. We need to focus instead of focusing on each other. We need to be focused on the company, putting that pressure on the company, making sure that they do right by their people, their developers who create the games, and make sure they do right by the consumer, us. We are the gamers. We need to be able to focus and say, listen, you guys are doing this the wrong way. Here's a right way you can do it. And they need to be receptive of that information. The only way we can do that is if we tell them, if we show them by not buying games, you know, or by canceling a service. Like when they raised the prices for the PlayStation Plus Premium, I had to cancel it. I couldn't justify having it simply because you know it just seemed egregious. It was almost like $100 extra a year. Like it was just too much. It was just like it's not worth it at this point. You know what am I paying for? What am I getting back? You know, as a consumer, um, and it really does suck because like PlayStation has some really good games. You know, they had Spider-Man 2, the original Last of Us. We're not gonna get into the remakes. They had God of War Ragnarok. You know, they have all these great games, but I feel like they can make so much more money and um, so much more profit for themselves if they released everything sooner on PC. If they develop these games so where the the cost wouldn't be so high. You know, we see developers like Insomniac where they're now talking about releasing their games every few years with a slightly smaller budget, just so way they can recoup because I think Spider-Man 2 was $300 million, absolutely insane. The game was great, you know, but $300 million to make a game is crazy, and that's why we're seeing these massive layoffs now. And it's hit Insomniac, it's hit Naughty Dog, Fire Sprite, the whole studio in London completely closed down. I think that one was the most egregious simply because 5 days before they decided to close down the entire studio, you know, Jim Ryan and all his people went over there and they were laughing and taking pictures, and you can see all this stuff online, and it's just like next thing you know, they don't have a job anymore. They're just gone, you know, and we gotta hold them accountable. And the best way to hold them accountable is to do things like this, you know, where we sit here, we could talk about it, we could talk amongst ourselves, and we can say, listen, PlayStation needs to do better. Um, because I feel like if this was the flip side, if this was Microsoft closing down Xbox studios, whole studios, firing just seasoned developers just because they were not making enough money, I think it would be on every single news article for the next 2 weeks. It would be everywhere. People would say Xbox is dead. It's officially going third party. Even though, ironically, they're saying that, but for different reasons. I just think the hypocrisy of the situation where I feel like the gaming media and the journalists are just like, take a second look and like, let's Sony, let them be. You know, not having any games, firing their staff, closing studios. It really does look like it's in shambles, and it's a shame. We gotta do better than that. Yeah, we really gotta do better. And I think we're gonna call it right there. Tell me what you think. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't like it. let me know. Comment down below. We'll have a discussion because that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about games. All right, and that was my quick save. Peace out.